Fela talks in and suffering and smiling, right? I think that is a metaphor. Suffering and smiling is a metaphor for how we are able to, how we socialize as people. That regardless of how tough it is, the average Nigerian and their sense of humor, that is the medicine to the hell which Nigeria has turned to. Right, to the illness which Nigeria has turned to. It really is the medicine. You're going down. How often is it here? Think about it here. My guy, if you crack joke with a person, you always have to follow it with, oh, I'm just kidding. Oh, I'm playing. Oh. But for Nigeria understands, say, guy, you understand? You can tease a Nigeria with it. So Nigeria is at a critical time. I don't know if I don't think it's ever been this bad in terms of how really bad, in terms of how really dire the level of poverty is. And wherever there is poverty, it's going to drive insecurity. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. So I think also if we have the opportunity to make sure that if we have the opportunity and privilege for our children to experience those states, right? Even if you decide, say, okay, that this part of the world has become home for you, if you can create a haven in Nigeria, it's possible. Whichever part, ABJ, get parts for ABJ, get parts for, Lagos, where if you create haven, you understand, for your children, for you to be like a place that some of these cultures are passed on, some of this attitude, socialization is just passed on to your children. So.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Lost Lagosians, a podcast coming talking about Lagosians, Nigerians in and out of Africa. I'm your host, Brother Mike. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being here today. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all the love and support of our show here at Lost Lagosians and what we do here at Lost Lagosians. So today I have a friend of mine who was actually in Nigeria very recently, just got back from the motherland. Yeah, so I just came back from Nigeria. Really excited to have him on. There's some things which we kind of want to do. I want to circle back with him on regarding Nigeria in general, our things, the upcoming election, and I think his thoughts will be invaluable in terms of those that are in diaspora who are wondering what's going on in Nigeria. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in our guest. Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for being here. Welcome back. How was your trip overall? How was your experience?
My trip was good. We thank God. I was in Niger for 3 months. Initially, when you come back, when you come home, it takes maybe a week or two to get used to the flow and to change and adjust your mindset, because I feel like that's the biggest thing in terms of some of the way things are done here and how efficient things are here. You go back to Nigeria and you're still faced with the old, okay, lights no day, water no day, things like that. But after a week or so, you adjust, your mind adjusts, and then you get used to it, and it becomes home. So at the end of the 3 months, I felt like I'd settled in well, and the only thing that was drawing me back to Yankee, honestly, was just family being here.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you didn't think that the no lights, no water, the traffic, the stress, the hustle bustle, you were able to overcome that, which is quite interesting.
It's an inconvenience, right? But the reality is there has to be a shift in mindset. You can't let yourself you have to tell yourself that this is a different place, this is a different country, this is not Yankee. So once you make that shift mentally, right? For me, that was the biggest step. If I let myself get stuck in why aren't things working this, which they should, right? Things should be working in specific. If you pay for something, you should expect a certain amount of, you should expect something to be delivered, what you paid for. But if you get stuck in that mindset, if you're trying to gauge Nigeria and use this place, use wherever it is, whatever developed nation, first world country X that you want to fill in. If you use that as your measuring stick, if you use that as your frame of reference, you run mad. So keep that. You will run mad. I promise you, you run mad. So once you tell yourself, the first step should be, this is not the UK, this is not Yankee, this is not okay. Boom. Then I think that's the first step, and it helps you adjust. And I think that's what I did, which made it easier.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Because I remember one time I was in Nigeria for just a week, and my theory, just to corroborate what you're saying, is that the longer you stay, the better it gets. Which unfortunately for a lot of us here, we only have 2 weeks of vacation. Some people never get time off. Some get a very short time. So imagine you have 2 weeks of vacation. You want to spend 2 or 3 days settling into your vacation, or that 2 or 3 days in the back end. So that leaves you with roughly a week. So you don't have a lot of time when you go to Nigeria, given that it takes you a day to even get to Nigeria. Right. So we don't really have that time to settle. But if you have the luxury of being able to go longer, I think it'd be more enjoyable. It'd be a more enjoyable trip.
Yeah. And Nigeria is different in so many ways. The way we socialize, the way we walk, the way we socialize. Those are all different things that also make it. Also, I think, specifically the way we socialize, I think it mitigates some of the other difficult aspects of Nigeria. Specifically, people's attitude to work, right? Where there's the anyhowness, it's like throw everything up to cruising and vibes and, whatever. That one is for someone who is living in a place where things are done for the most part the right way, right? We see that it's maddening, but honestly, what mitigates that for me is also how we socialize, because after you've gone through that stress, you can walk into your uncle's house or your mom's house or your, auntie's house or whoever, your friend's house. And before you know it, there's laughter, there's cracking jokes, there's food, all of those things.
So in your opinion, the social / psychological elemental connection supersedes the burden of the infrastructure and the failing governments?
Yeah, it mitigates it. Think about it, man. If not for Fela talks in and suffering and smiling, right? And I think for me that is a metaphor. Suffering and smiling is a metaphor for how we are able to find how we socialize as people, that regardless of how tough it is, right? The average Nigerian and their sense of humor, that is the medicine to the hell which Nigeria has turned to, right? To the illness which Nigeria has turned to. It really is the medicine. You're going down a street in Lagos, and you've gone through a really rough day, frustrating day of trying to chase something down a government office, and they're pointing you left, right, center, going down a street in Lagos, and you see somebody who just make you laugh from their stupidity or their, or you just sit down with them and somebody from nowhere, they've never met you, they don't begin crack jokes with you, So it's how often is it here? Think about it here.
Yeah.
My guy, if you crack joke with person, you always have to follow it with, oh, I'm just kidding. Oh, I'm playing. But for Nigeria understand, say, guy.
Yeah.
You understand? You can tease Nigeria with So
yeah, I'm reading A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And he was talking about something like this that you're describing, and particularly like for somewhere like India, for example, where life itself is not protected in terms of there are no what I like to think of blindfolds. So the society here in the West, the UK, US, Canada, Germany, Deutschland, or even France, they are protected because we have an idea of what society should look like. And we do everything to safeguard that. God forbid you see a madman running on the streets, butt naked.
Right.
The police is going to come and swoop them out before 0.01% of the population sees that.
Yeah.
So that in a way shields us from some things in life, which might be positive or negative, regardless. So I think what Eckhart Tolle was talking about was in India, for example, like there's at this point, at least over 1 billion people in India, and the government is not efficient enough to safeguard some things, and I think that's what you are addressing. Like some things you can even see on the road, how crazy things are going. I think when I was in Nigeria earlier, a couple months ago, somebody was like peeing in the middle of the road. You couldn't do that here necessarily because that's an infraction. So but it's just you are drawing like, oh wow, this guy, you can empathize with him and say, this guy's going through a lot. So it hits at some different elemental parts of the emotion, or it hits at different parts of the emotions, which here you don't ever see that. So in a way, while there's the peace of mind of the first world and the beauty of covering things, I'm just trying to argue to corroborate a point that there's a loss. Some things are sacrificed too, and that might be part of the humor.
Yes, absolutely. So, so Nigeria has a lot to offer as far as how we socialize and how we should be looking at this world. But yes, do you miss those things that make life convenient, that this part of the world offers? Yes, absolutely, you do. So, but it really is not as bad as if you have money in Nigeria. If you have money, you can get almost anything that you can get here, right? Whether not to go more, whether not to some of the things that is knowing the right people and knowing how to do it. Whether it's even paying bills, there are some services now that I'll give you an example. I didn't realize for the longest time that I could pay my bill through my banking app in Nigeria. My light bill is no more NEPA, but my power bill. I didn't realize for the longest time that I could pay it when I moved into my apartment. The typical way that the Megad pays for it is, dude goes down the street, he gives it to a woman that has a POS. She pays his bill. The woman gives him the number. He goes and he puts it into his prepaid meter, right? Get one night where I come back, and everywhere was closed. I couldn't go to do it the POS way, right? It was my neighbor, man. I tell you, Nigeria is beautiful. It was my neighbor who the Megad was like, yeah, this Ogafi show you, make you ask her. So okay. I asked my neighbor. This guy was like, yeah, sure, no problem. The guy put out his phone, asked me for my meter number. Dude proceeded to pay for my bill. I was like, nah, my Yankee mindset couldn't let him. It was like, no. Why try? No, make I give you money back. Dude was like, chill. It's only 3,000 naira. No problem.
Yeah.
The guy just asked me my meter number, paid for the thing, texted me. wow. I was like, this is Niger. There are free meals in Niger. You know, fit see that here. So went in, you guy gave me the number, and my light was back on, right? Coming back downstairs, I thanked the guy. I hadn't had dinner, right? Me, my Niger way before I left Niger would have been like, guy, make we go chop, right? But instead, what came out was, have you had dinner?
Wow.
That na my Yankee mind. My Yankee from my mind was speaking. Instead of saying, guy, make we go chop, mag, they go chop, make we go chop, mag.
Yeah.
You know, my Yankee mind was to ask, have you had dinner? You understand?
Yeah.
Well, even if it's to guy, make we go chop. You buy, even if the guy don't chop, you buy him a few bottles of whatever beverage, carbonated beverage. You know, so it's interesting.
That freedom, and Nigeria, like people say, is one of the freest. Nigerians are the freest people in terms of the culture.
Generous.
Very generous.
Without expecting much back.
Without expecting much, it's just that the society has pushed people down. So a friend of mine, when I went to Nigeria earlier this year, a friend of mine, his younger brother, who I've never met, by the way, I've never met him before, but he heard about me. So came to the airport, picked me up, was taking me to the hotel, and then he said there's somewhere he needs to take me to. You know, that I'm just flying. He's never been abroad, obviously, but he hears it's a long flight. So he needs to take me somewhere. I was like, are you sure? Because I don't want to stress, again, that Yankee mind. It was like, normally, the kind of, the way we show gratitude, I think a lot of us, that has been beat out of us when we come to the US or wherever.
Yeah.
Because the society is less receptive of that.
Exactly.
You want to be nice to someone, you want to really go out, but the inside is like, that's weird. That's I don't need. I'm okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The question generosity.
The question generosity, like what's behind it?
Exactly.
Like, why are you being nice to me? Is there something odd about you? Can you really be that nice? Because we are usually not that nice from the West, compared to the kind of generosity we have in Africa.
Exactly.
So long story short, this guy takes me to some restaurants and he blows a lot of money on me.
Yeah.
Like so much I'm ashamed to say it on air.
Right.
Yeah. Dude, man, I almost felt depressed. I was like, guy, I never met you before. Like, why are you being so nice? I mean, we ate, it was just very nice. There's not anyhow restaurants. It's like this upper end restaurant. Meanwhile, his brother already told me that, this guy, he's really going through XYZ. And the guy was not expecting anything. I was feeling very bad because, again, just coming from the airport, from Atlanta, and I'm like, so to your point, that's what you said earlier. You're like, your mind was, guy, have you eaten something? Or let's go and eat. Yeah, that's something very distinct, and that's just like a hand of friendship, which here you never get because you're not used to that. Wow. That's very. I mean, that's a good one.
And honestly, guy, to tell you the truth, for me, that is the value of going to Niger, because these things you lose them when you come here. But if as you go back to Niger, the more you go back to Niger, right? Niger, those things that are already in you, Nigeria awakens it.
So for those things that were dead in you.
Right. It's not dead. It's like, it's maybe asleep, dormant, whatever you want to call it. But Nigeria awakens it. So, I think also if we have the opportunity to make sure that if we have the opportunity and privilege for our children to experience those states, right? Even if you decide, say, okay, that this part of the world has become home for you, if you can create a haven in Nigeria, it's possible. Whichever part, ABJ, get parts for ABJ, get parts for, Lagos, where if you create haven, you understand, for your children, for it to be like a place that some of these cultures are passed on, some of this attitude, socialization is just passed on to your children. So,
no, that's very, very, very good. Very, very good. I mean, I think that's a good one. Even to me, as I'm thinking about it, as someone who's been here, and many of our listeners who are outside of Nigeria, you kind of have to wonder and say, well, what part of me is dormant that I may never be able to awaken unless I have the opportunity to keep going to Nigeria, to keep waking that up. And the more you go and the longer you stay when you go, the more you maybe have a better, if I can say that, quality of life. Despite all the stress, like you said earlier, that mind has to shift. If your mind is shift and you get used to taking a cold shower, for example, you find out the shower is not that cold after all, after the first or second time.
Exactly. Shift the mindset.
Yeah, it's all about conditioning. So cold showers may not be that bad, but I'm used to taking warm showers here.
Right.
That's good. That's a very good perspective. I like that a lot. But let's talk about the business aspects. Like if somebody was supposed to go there, I hear a lot of people say you should not go back to Nigeria unless you have a business that is settled, unless you have a good business or a business that is very strong. Don't ever go back to Nigeria. Would you kind of agree with that philosophy for those in diaspora?
I have to be mindful when I make this recommendation because, some people, right? Some people definitely have this, have the opportunity to make it to Nigeria and be able to invest, and some don't, right? So kind of like have to have that caveat or preface, right? Now, if you do have the opportunity to go down to Nigeria to invest in Nigeria, you're wasting your time, or you're going to set yourself up for major loss if you're not closely and actively involved in whatever it is you're establishing. Okay. That's one. And then the other thing is, if you have the opportunity, Nigeria is a place where, because of it being home, where there is really no ceiling. There's no ceiling, right? Here, as a foreigner, as someone who's an immigrant, there's definitely a ceiling. There's a point where it's like, once you hit this, you can't go beyond because you're not from here. You understand?
Yeah.
So the beauty of Nigeria is that there's no limits to what you can potentially do if you have the mindset, and if you're looking to, and if you're motivated. You understand? So
I completely agree with you. No ceiling might mean something like no established path or no established structure. So, for example, let's say I want to be selling solar panels in Nigeria, and I'm into solar. I'm not. So, but let's say that's what's for the purpose of conversation. I'm into solar panel. If I'm into solar panel, that solar panel industry is still budding. It's very young in Nigeria. In the US, it's somewhat established. So the ceiling means there are regulations, there's laws, there's this, there's that. There's so many guides because it's such a exploited. That's not a word. It's such an exploited industry. Over time, maybe it's like, 50 years old industry. The people that will really be successful are those that are able to come into an untapped potential, whereby that ceiling has not been set in such a very rigid form. What do I mean by that? Nigeria has one of the largest, if not the largest, youth population. Number one. Number two, in terms of tech, Nigeria is also, we talked about fintech earlier. Nigeria is not the top in Africa, the banking system, for example. So a lot of opportunities where somebody can come in and make a path and blaze a trail for themselves. Look at Dangote, for example. Of course, people will say there's politics involved, whatever, but maybe that might be an extreme, so we can maybe, it's an outlier. But in general, there's no ceiling in certain things that someone can get into. And you being someone who is Nigerian, it also helps because there's really no ceiling. So the no ceiling that you're talking about to me, it means two things. Number one, like I described earlier, going into an industry whereby it's not really been exploited, you can exploit and make a path for yourself because the democracy is still young. It's a developing country. And secondly, being that you're Nigerian, if you can speak Yoruba, you can speak Hausa, you can speak Igbo, you can easily blend in. And there's really no ceiling because of your color, for example. So
yeah, that's for me. That's really what I am specifically referring to. Is that those things, your ethnicity, your immigrant background, those will not be barriers for you to. You can keep climbing up the ladder of success. So those will not be the barriers. Those will not be things that will keep you out of a specific level of success, right? Yeah. But here, that's that. I mean, you can. How many people fit be as an immigrant? How far can you go that you get to the top of whatever field it is that you're in? All things being equal, if they present you and they present a non-immigrant, right? All things being equal, CV, everything is the same, right? Bros, 8 times out of 10, it's likely that they'll choose that person who is the true American, you know.
Yeah, 8 times out of 10, only because of the last 2 years, COVID, George Floyd. I would argue pre-2020 is more of 10 out of 10 in
right.
99 percentile,
right.
distribution. Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
So the opportunities in Nigeria. The only thing is that as you approach it, just approach it really. Try to be really sober. Try not to be driven by emotions. Try to really, or sentiments. Try to really think it out. And it's okay. It's okay for things to take time. It really is okay for things to take time. So.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Very, very good. Very good. As we kind of wrap up, do you have any final advice for someone who wants to go to Nigeria and spend 3 months like you have fearlessly done in light of the security condition, the election coming up in 2023 and everything else?
Yes. There's no way to really sugarcoat it, and we shouldn't for us, for this podcast being like a way to help people navigate different aspects of life, whether it's here or whether it is in back home in Nigeria, the motherland. There's no way to sugarcoat it. You have to really be mindful, careful. As you go home, there's no point in trying to stand out. And there's ways that people that are from Yankee or in the UK or wherever, they try to stand out by how they dress, by, flex, all of those things. It really is not necessary. You understand? Try as much as you can to blend in once you go to Nigeria. Try as much as you can to speak the language, the vernacular, right? I saw you. I was really impressed that night as we did enter from where we're in the island, but we're going to Apapa, right? And we got to just before AJ, right? There's that exit that you think that will take you to AJ. It was at night. Ran into some guys who were essentially trying to get us to take the wrong turn. And the way you just spoke to them in Yoruba, the way you just communicated, those guys realized, okay, that this guy is not, or the impression that they got, right? False impression. Say this guy from here, say this guy in that area. You understand? Mm-hmm. Hey, maybe one day we hang as a lie. You understand? Mm-hmm. I was impressed because the guy with the drive was not your guy. Mm-hmm. But you seemed to be more in touch with what was happening around you than him. You will come from Yankee. You understand? You understand? I was impressed. Yeah. I was looking. I was like, guy, Now you supposed to tell us make we come off from here, but now my guy from Yankee they navigate things. You understand? So as you go into Nigeria, just keep that in mind. There's no need standing out by flexing your Yankee background if you want to get out of there safe and sound. So I think that's the biggest thing, because it comes with the election season, the election period. It really comes with it, the insecurity, and even more so with how the economy is getting worse every day. Things are going to be more insecure. It's going to be, the level of insecurity is going to get
poverty.
worse.
People are hungry.
Poverty, yes.
No
Nigeria
jobs.
Nigeria is at a critical time. I don't know if I don't think it's ever been this bad in terms of how really bad, in terms of how really dire the level of poverty is. And wherever there is poverty, it's going to drive insecurity. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. So yeah, keep that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Just what I want to add to that is that if you're in a position where you don't feel comfortable, make sure that you don't travel at night. And secondly, if you are not comfortable navigating the system, find somebody who you trust, and that person can help you around. Definitely a good advice. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for listening. Really appreciate it. Be safe out there. Until next time. Bye guys. Thanks. Bye.
All right.